say fall is the season of change, but when the leaves begin to die, something else wakes up. These are for true stories from people who never thought autumn would be their last season. Our first story takes place in a small town in Iowa, October 14th, 2018. It's called The Thing in the Cornfield. A group of high school friends just on the cusp of adulthood decided to visit an abandoned corn maze a little ways out of town. It was meant to be their last fall adventure before college pulled them in different directions. They came prepared for a good time, flashlights, snacks, and a shared bottle of whiskey to keep the chill away. At first, everything was exactly as they'd hoped. They were laughing, chasing each other through the towering, dry stalks of corn, the crisp autumn air filling their lungs. It was perfect, until someone realized the wind had stopped blowing. Just like that, the air went completely still. Even the insects, the constant soundtrack of the countryside, went silent. That's when one of them, a girl named Mia, noticed something was wrong. A few rows ahead, a figure stood motionless in the corn. It was tall, ragged, but it was wrong. It wasn't moving like a person. It was swaying just slightly, almost like it was breathing. They told themselves it was just a scarecrow, a forgotten Halloween decoration, until it turned its head. No one screamed, not at first. They just froze, a collective wave of pure, cold dread washing over them. The figure stepped out from between the rows of corn, dragging a broken foot behind it, its jaw slack and twitching unnaturally. When it spoke, the sound that came out was like wind whizzing through hollow wood. "Why did you come back?" That's when the panic hit. They ran. Their flashlights flickered, beams dancing wildly across the corn, which now seemed to slice at their skin as they tore through it. And behind them, the sound of that awful hollow breathing grew louder and louder. Then they finally burst out onto the road, gasping for air. Only 3 of them made it out. Mia was missing. The police searched for 3 days. They combed through every inch of that maze. The only thing they found was her phone lying in the dirt. On it was one final terrifying video. It showed her running, sobbing, whispering over and over again, "It's right behind me." The very last frame was just a shadow, and the sound of crunching corn. For since then, locals say that every fall, they see that same shadow moving through the fields, always at dusk, always right when the wind stops. Our second story, the motel room that shouldn't exist, happened late one November somewhere in the rural backroads of Pennsylvania. A truck driver named Earl Simmons had been on the road for what felt like an eternity and was desperate for rest. He saw a faded, flickering sign for a roadside motel that read "Vacancy, warm beds." It was exactly what he needed. He pulled his rig into the gravel lot and went inside. The front desk was empty. There was just a tarnished service bell and an old, leather-bound guest book. He rang the bell twice before an old woman appeared from a back room. Her eyes were milky white and her voice trembled when she spoke. "Room 9 is open," she said. "You'll be safe there." The way she said it was odd, but Earl was too tired to care. He paid in cash. He walked down the long, dimly lit hallway, key in hand. But as he looked at the room numbers, he realized something was very wrong. Doors were numbered 7, 8, and then 10. There was no room 9, except at the very end of the hall there was a door standing slightly ajar. The key in his hand, it fit perfectly. The room smelled old, like dust and damp earth after a rain. The wallpaper was peeling, and the small television on the dresser was just flickering with static. Exhausted, he collapsed onto the bed. A few moments later, a knock at the door. "Housekeeping," a soft voice called from the other side. He got up and opened it. No one was there. The hallway was empty. He closed the door, unnerved. Suddenly, the TV switched itself on, but it wasn't showing a movie or a news channel. It was a security camera feed of his own room. He saw himself on the screen, standing right by the bed. And then another version of him walked out of the bathroom on the screen, standing directly behind him. He spun around. The room was empty, but the static from the TV grew louder and louder until it twisted into whispering. "Leave before room 9 takes you to." He didn't need to be told twice. He ran. He burst out the door, sprinted down the hallway, only to find the lobby completely boarded up, the windows shattered, and the vacancy sign outside broken and dark. The police never found that motel. They only found his truck, abandoned deep in the woods, miles from any known road. This next story takes us to the fall of 2002. family had just moved into an old farmhouse in Vermont, looking for a quieter, simpler life. They had a 7-year-old son named Danny who absolutely loved Halloween. About a week before the big day, Danny ran inside, his face beaming with excitement. "Mom, there's a boy playing in the pumpkin patch." His mother smiled, assuming it was one of the neighbor kids. But when she looked outside, the patch was empty. That night, Danny couldn't sleep. He kept insisting that the boy was at his window, asking him to come out and play under the dirt. His mother checked, of course, but saw nothing but the round, orange shapes of pumpkins glowing in the moonlight. The next morning, however, she found something that made her blood run cold. There were footprints in the soft earth outside, small, bare footprints, leading directly from the pumpkin patch to Danny's window. Halloween night finally arrived. The family carved pumpkins, lit candles, and went to bed early after a fun evening of trick-or-treating. Sometime after midnight, a scream tore through the quiet farmhouse. Danny's parents rushed to his room. His bed was empty. The window was wide open. Out in the pumpkin patch, one of the pumpkins they had carved had a small, muddy handprint pressed onto its surface from the inside. Police searched everywhere, but they found no trace of Danny. But every October since, neighbors say they sometimes see a small figure walking through the fields at night, carrying a pumpkin and whispering to anyone who gets too close, "Come play under the dirt." Our final story, The Last Leaf, comes from a hiker named Elena. She loved solitude and made a tradition of camping alone in the Appalachian Mountains every fall. She always said the forest felt alive in autumn until one year when it felt a little too alive. She was camped deep in the woods one clear October night. As the sun began to set, she noticed something strange. Not a single leaf was falling from the trees. The branches were completely still. They weren't moving at all, not even with the wind that she could feel on her face. Then she heard it, a voice whispering right behind her. "Don't touch the leaves." She spun around, her heart pounding. No one was there, but her tent flap, which she knew she had zipped shut, was now open. When she peered outside, she saw them. Figures tall, slender, branch-like silhouettes standing between the trees. Their heads were all bent slightly, angled toward her, and when one of them moved, she realized the sound it made wasn't the crunch of footsteps. It was the sound of dry leaves scraping over bark. She grabbed her flashlight and just ran. She tore through the forest, trying to follow the trail of fallen leaves she remembered from her hiking. But now, every leaf she stepped on screamed. It wasn't loud, just a chorus of faint, papery cries, like hundreds of whispers begging her to stop. She somehow made it to her car by dawn, shaking, her arms and face covered in scratches she couldn't explain. Park rangers went back to check on her campsite. They reported something bizarre. There were no leaves on the ground anywhere near the site. Not a single one. Just bare trees, and a perfect circle of ash where her tent had been. Elena never went camping again. And every fall, when the wind blows through that part of the woods, locals say the leaves don't fall anymore. They just hang there, and they watch for stories from different places, different times, but all taking place in the fall when the world dies just enough for something else to take its place. So the next time you walk through the rustling leaves, or see your breath crystallize in the cold air, don't look back, because sometimes autumn is looking right back at you too late. As the leaves turn and the air grows crisp, a special kind of chill settles in. It's more than just the weather. It's the feeling that something ancient is waking up tonight. We're going to talk about why autumn might be the most haunted season of all. But for stories that will make you think twice about that cool breeze on your neck, our first story takes place on a foggy October morning in upstate New York. A student named Kelly missed her usual bus to school. As she waited alone, another yellow bus pulled up. It was unmarked with dim headlights and dark, tinted windows. The driver was strange. He was pale, with a smile that was just too wide. He didn't speak, just nodded for her to get on board. The bus was full, but the silence was absolute. No one was moving. Kelly whispered a quiet good morning to the kids sitting next to her, but there was no reply. That's when she noticed that none of them were breathing. A cold dread washed over her as she looked out the window. The world outside was wrong. The trees were bare and the sky was black even though it was morning. Panic set in. She frantically rang the bell to get off. The driver's unnerving grin widened. "You shouldn't have gotten on," he whispered, his voice like rustling leaves. Without a second thought, Kelly leaped from the moving bus, tumbling into a ditch beside the road. When she scrambled to her feet and looked back, the bus was gone, no tire tracks, no engine sound, just silence. A week later, while recovering, she found an old newspaper article from 1978. It detailed a horrific bus accident on that very same route. The driver, the students, all of them were gone. The photo of the driver in the article was the same man with that terrifying wide smile. Next, we traveled to Kansas, where a farmer named Robert started seeing strange lights over his cornfields every fall. He described them as glowing orange orbs hovering low over the crops at first. He dismissed them as drones or teenagers playing pranks, but one night he decided to film them. As he stepped outside, the lights pulsed and drew closer. Then a horrifying sound pierced the night his cows weren't mooing, they were screaming. Bert grabbed his shotgun and ran toward the barn. The air grew thick with the smell of burnt copper. The lights swirled around him, and then everything went silent. He woke up at dawn, lying in the dirt. His fields were completely empty, harvested with an impossible clean precision. And there, burned into the soil, were 6 words: "You planted what was ours." Bert sold the farm a month later. The new owners never made it through a single autumn. Third story comes from a small coastal town in Oregon. A woman named Elaine loved to walk along the cliffs every evening. She told her friends she enjoyed how the wind spoke to her. They laughed it off as just a quirky saying until the day Elaine stopped answering her phone. Worried, her friends went to her house. They found her journal lying open on the table. The very last entry read, "It keeps whispering my name. Tonight I'll answer." They rushed to the cliffs. They're right at the edge where Elaine's shoes placed neatly beside a small pile of leaves. There were no footprints leading away, no signs of a struggle. There was only a sudden gust of wind, so cold it felt like ice. And in that wind, they swore they could hear a faint sound, almost like laughter. To this day, locals say that on windy nights, you can still hear Elaine's voice in the gusts whispering other people's names, calling them closer to the edge. Final story is about the town of Maple Hollow and its annual fall carnival. In October, a new attraction appeared, a booth that no one remembered setting up. It was old-fashioned, painted black and gold with a crooked sign that read, "One free wish." People thought it was just a fun gimmick. Then the mayor vanished. A week later, the sheriff disappeared. Then 3 children went missing. When the police finally searched the carnival grounds, the mysterious booth was gone. In its place sat a single large pumpkin. Carved into its surface were the faces of the mayor, the sheriff, and the 3 missing kids, their expressions frozen in terror. The town was shaken, but life eventually moved on. The following year, the carnival returned, and so did the booth. But this time, the sign was different. It said, "One wish already granted." You see, fall isn't just about endings. It's about the things that crawl out when everything else begins to die. So if you ever feel a sudden chill on an empty road or hear your name whispered on the wind, don't turn around. Because maybe this time autumn isn't just passing through. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed these stories, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next descent into the shadows. Stay safe out there.